Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I think we'll start off and begin with introductions. Luis, if you wanted to go ahead and start off, or if you had anything.
Thank you, Aliana. Thank you very much for agreeing to facilitate this conversation. My name is Luis Francisco Rico Gutierrez, and I'm Dean of the College of Design.
Dean Robison, if you want to introduce yourself first.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Dan Robison, the Dean of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences.
And Dean Seo.
Thanks, Aliana. I'm Hilary Seo, the Interim Dean of the University Library.
And Dean Jolly.
Hello, I'm Laura Jolly, Dean of the College of Human Sciences.
Dean Schmittmann.
Yeah, hi, I'm Beate Schmittmann, Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences.
And Vice President Lawrence.
Yeah, hello, I'm John Lawrence. I serve as Vice President for Extension and Outreach.
Great. So now that we've got introductions out of the way, I think I'll begin with Vice President Lawrence. The first question, just to kind of start off the discussion and really frame this topic of civic innovation at Iowa State. What do you think is the significance of civic innovation for a land-grant university like Iowa State? Specifically, what does this mean to the state of Iowa?
Yeah, I'd say civic innovation is something that we do every day in every county across Iowa and across the nation, with our land-grant universities. We're embedded in the communities and have formal linkages and responsibilities from those communities back to the university. These are communities of place, like a town, a city, or a county, but they're also communities of practice. It's maybe a community of cattle farmers or of municipal clerks or of parents or restaurant managers. And we have connections with all of those communities of practice as well as place. As part of the innovation, we listen, we earn trust with these community members and build capacity and leaders so that communities can help themselves. Extension provides a two-way communication. We listen and observe the questions that we relay on to researchers on campus, and we also interpret discoveries into practical application and educations for these communities. The land grants from the very beginning were an innovation themselves. 159 years ago when Abraham Lincoln signed the Morrill Act. This was really a grand experiment because prior to that, higher education were only for the wealthy that could afford it. But the Morrill Act of 1862 gave land that was held in the Louisiana Purchase, held by the federal government, but gave that land to states if they would use those resources to provide public education for the masses. So that was an innovation. But Iowa State was an innovator from the very beginning. When it accepted its first class of students in March of 1869, I've heard President Winterstein share the statement from the then president of the Board of Trustees and by our first president, Adelijah Welch. They said that the president of the trustees said that one of the chief aims of this college is to break down barriers which belong to the darker ages of the past and to open these doors for any of God's people, whether high or low in social circles, whether rich or poor, white or black, or man or woman. And keep in mind, at that time, there were only 4 universities in the United States that allowed women to study at a university. And Iowa State was one of those, innovator from the very beginning. ISU is also an innovator in research as well as extension. The Hatch Act of 1887 that formed the agricultural experiment stations across the land grant, some say was modeled after the Iowa State model farm here in Ames. And the extension idea of taking research done on campus out to the community started with a group of farmers from Sioux County, Iowa, that requested education on seed corn genetics. We put an agronomy professor on a train to Northwest Iowa in 1903. By 1906, we were sending train loads of faculty out to communities for a week-long short course on topics of agriculture, home economics, boys and girls clubs, and community development. And in 1913, the College of Engineering established Engineering Extension Service. So by the time the federal government signed the Smith-Lever Act in 1914 to establish cooperative extension service, Iowa had already conducted more than 170 of these short courses across the state and had started the network of county extension offices. By 1919, all 99 counties had an extension agent employed by the Iowa State College and embedded in the community to start this innovation. And this model has evolved over time, but continues today with our commitment to connect local communities, develop and deliver research-based education and information to address relevant problems and opportunities. We innovate every day to engage Iowans in solving today's problems and preparing for a thriving future.
So to follow up on that, and you already kind of mentioned some of the successes with it, including breaking down some barriers and connecting with communities and making doors a little bit more equitable. What are some other historical milestones given or after the land grant was chartered?
Yeah, as I said, the state of Iowa in 1906 established the Extension Act, which provided cost share to counties if they could raise money locally to hire that agent. So I think we hired our first county agent in 1912. And as I said, by 1919, we had all of those counties covered. But we've continued to work in those 5 areas where we started. Agriculture, the home economics or families, human sciences is what we call it today. The Boys and Girls Club became 4-H, and that's, you think of the 4-H clover, 4-leaf clover was actually started by Jesse Shambaugh here in Iowa as part of the Iowa State program. Community economic development in the College of Design. We've worked in that area. Some would say just putting together those short courses took a lot of community development, and part of bringing that innovation together to have a week-long short courses with dozens of professors coming from campus. And then our extension to manufacturers and to industry, connected with our College of Engineering, has been going, as I said, since the early 1900s.
Those are really great milestones. We'll shift the questions over to Dean Seo about the library and its focus. So your leadership in social innovation has clearly had a significant impact within the university, but also outside those boundaries. And we'd like to know, what does civic and social innovation mean for the library as it focuses on global citizenship and diversity and inclusion?
Sure. So the library has been changing for quite some time now. And for a couple of decades, the library has been challenged and asked, what's your purpose and value if everything is on the internet? There's a Starbucks down the street. I can study there and I can be seen and socialize. And now we have a great maker space just in the Student Innovation Center. Well, we continue to do what we have always done, and we support our users' evolving needs by adapting and addressing change and innovating. And I will admit, for a while, we tried focusing on telling our story of how sexy we are and how cutting edge we are. And, as true as that is, obviously, it's kind of a hard sell. So social innovation has really given the university library a new platform and an opportunity to revisit our core values and embrace them wholeheartedly. So we have always been about free and equitable access to information and technology, the freedom of ideas and expression, academic freedom, diversity and inclusion, and the advancement of research and creation of knowledge. Also, the development of students into global citizens, all for the benefit of society through advocacy and action. And at a time where there is a proliferation of information and very loose differentiation between facts, data, and science from opinion, facts, and deep fakes, daily reminders of social injustice and inequities, and a new market for startups and inventions, the library's role is vital. This is why our library adopted a social innovation framework to guide our conversations, shift mindset and culture, and advance specific initiatives. It nicely encapsulates our values and philosophies around inclusion, access, and creating, sharing, and responsibly applying knowledge, and still weaves social justice into our work. We simply define social innovation as innovations that are both good for society and our community, and enhance our community's capability to act. We don't see social innovation as a high-level concept for the leadership in the library. We are working to engage with our entire library to promote SI operationally. And in order to do this, to assist with developing, we developed a framework actually based on the concept of culture, advancement, and access. We needed a way to make social innovation more tangible within the library. And these pillars kind of help prioritize our work, guide how we operate and work together, and how we quickly adapt to change and leverage opportunities. Keeping the library agile and relevant into the future is dependent upon our ability to shift our culture to be more inclusive and collaborative, more externally focused. The world changes around us constantly, and we have to be able to respond in ways that our users understand. We need to meet them where they are and create programs not just for them, but with them. They need to have some input in this. The whole concept of, that the Iowa concept of if you build it, they will come, that only works if it's actually something they need and it's presented to them in a way that they can interact with and can use it successfully. So our first pillar is culture, and culture provides us the how. It's how we move forward and shape the future of our library together. We value inclusion and inviting individuals in with a diversity of thought, perspectives, and experiences into the conversation and into the innovation process. We're breaking down silos and barriers and looking externally for inspiration from stakeholders and partners. We collaborate with the capacity to influence others throughout the library, across campus, and beyond to design and create for our communities. This will contribute to meaningful changes and improve our practices, making more efficient, effective, and sustainable outcomes in our work. And will ultimately empower and foster agency among our staff, as well as our students and faculty. And this will enable us to better meet the needs of our faculty and students as they engage with research, innovation, and entrepreneurship, and ultimately to change our world for the better. And that is our land grant mission. Within Access, we strive to provide free and open access to information and technology. We do this through advocating, innovating, partnering, and leading to ensure equitable access can be realized by everyone. The success of individuals, our communities, democracy, and the advancement of our societies are dependent on this notion. Social innovation introduces new practices and ways of thinking that will ultimately lead to social change. And we see this as helping students and faculty and staff overcome digital divide, providing open resources to reduce costs to our students, supporting the accessibility needs of our students, reviewing and changing policies and practices that create hoops and obstacles for our users, and providing services and programs to help our students most at risk. All of this leads to advancement, which is our third pillar. We can look at advancement as having three main components that overlap: educational advancement, idea advancement, and people advancement. This can include knowledge discovery, advocating for and causing social change, encouraging critical thinking, aiding others in achieving their educational goals, fostering personal and professional growth, and lifelong learning in community. So the adoption of social innovation within the library has really helped to start conversations around what this looks like in the library and how to engage more with our students and faculty so we can innovate with them. It has also created a lot of excitement and energy. Many of our staff have been waiting for this opportunity to experiment. And as part of this mindset shift, they're being encouraged to take calculated risks and knowing that it is permissible to fail as long as they learn from it.
So you mentioned the library being this equitable access to education, and in alignment with that, this is also a space that constantly changes with technology and with the needs of students. Could you talk a little bit more about the specific innovation changemaker projects that the library staff are engaged in? I know you mentioned empowering agency within the library staff, which I think if we could talk more a little bit about that too.
Sure. With this collision of technology, for a while there we thought it was a threat. It really isn't a threat. It's actually created a lot of opportunities for us, and it has created a lot of inequities, but it also creates a lot of opportunities. One thing in particular, the library plays a critical role in the innovation and entrepreneurship process. And, we're developing this uncurriculum or a way to expose students who are participating in all these innovation projects, and including the innovation fellows. And so that they know about the resources and how to do market analysis, feasibility studies and patent searching. The librarians are also directly engaged with these projects, and they're consulting and collaborating with the students and actually, working side by side with them. This is a great way for our students to recognize that we have experts in libraries that can work with them well into their careers and just their personal passions as they take on. As they do more social activism, they need information to be doing this effectively. We can't just be spewing out random numbers and facts that aren't facts. I mean, we've seen that happen, but we want to make sure that our students are well equipped and they know how to access information that they need. Another area is collections, and this has created a huge inequity for even institutions like us. We're large institutions, and the way that publishers are putting up barriers, we are trying to negotiate with them and force conversations to make them change the way they look at their business model. We can't keep paying these huge subscription costs and keep putting all of the research that institutions like Iowa State create and putting them behind paywalls. Even though we are able to negotiate with some publishers and create what we call article publishing cost agreements, and you can cover those, we have to think about our colleagues in the Global South. They're doing fantastic work and research as well, but they can't afford to pay these types of APCs. And all of their research goes behind that paywall and doesn't get exposure like what we try to do for our own faculty and students by putting them in digital repositories or paying the APCs. So there's a huge imbalance there. Technology is also helping us create open educational resources. And we work with faculty to encourage them to adopt and create these OERs for their classroom. These OERs means that our students don't have to pay exorbitant prices for textbooks. It also means that other instructors at other institutions can adopt these OERs openly and freely, and we are sharing knowledge and reducing costs to faculty as well as students. We also have a Tracing Race project going on right now, and it's actually a program that President Winterstein asked the library to consider. And it's about recognizing and documenting race and racism on the ISU campus. We just launched this, and we put a call out for proposals from faculty, staff, and students. And the idea is to bring light to the events and people and experiences at ISU. It's a celebration, but also a step towards owning our own history. And it's a history that's not always been inclusive, and we recognize that. We could have simply made this a virtual exhibit, just done by our library staff, but my staff actually thought about turning this into a learning experience. And it invites our students in, and they can learn not only delving into racism, the issues of racism, but they also learn to do research with primary source materials and create digital scholarship. And I think the last thing that I would mention is we are very deliberately trying to address some of these inequities, like the digital divide. We provide, we put laptops and devices and hotspots in the hands of our students who need them most. We also provide our computer labs. And then we also think about our non-traditional students, our internationals, our students with accessibility needs. And we have opened up a family-friendly room or space. We have the International Nest. We have assistive technology, and we have inclusive restrooms. And the list goes on, and we continue to try to make sure that for some of our most at-risk students and our changing demographics, that we are addressing their needs as well.
Great, thank you so much. It's, these resources have a really valuable impact on a student's experience. So it's great to hear the different initiatives, especially in terms of becoming more equitable, but also becoming aware of our histories and the inequities around us. So we'll shift to the college deans. This question, so civic innovation is a really big term, and we want to know how you define it, specifically in reference to the work of your colleges at Iowa State University. Dean Rico Gutierrez, if you want to start.
Thank you very much, Aliana. I have to say that for me, it's incredibly rewarding to see the evolution of civic innovation at Iowa State University. We started talking about civic innovation over 10 years ago when almost nobody had heard about it. And it was not because we were creating something new. It was just because we realized that it was a great way of talking about what we've already done and continue to do in the college and the university. One of the more elegant and straightforward definitions of design is to say that it is a process that transforms a current state into a preferred one. Civic innovation is a process that allows communities to understand their potential and identify actions that will make it happen. It takes a community's current state and transforms it into a future preferred by all citizens. Civic innovation leverages resources that many times are not obvious, that are often overlooked, and through design thinking, transform them into social, cultural, ecological, and economical prosperity. Civic entrepreneurship takes these innovative approaches to problem solving and maximizes their impact, so all members of society, regardless of background, benefit from them. I will just end up by saying that for a College of Design that is proud of being part of the first land grant in the United States, civic innovation and civic entrepreneurship are not optional. They're ultimately the reason we exist.
Thank you. Dean Jolly, do you have any thoughts about what civic innovation means to your college?
Sure, and I agree with Luis. It's been a part of the DNA and the field that I represent, and also I think at Iowa State. And it, as you said, Aliana, it is a very big term, and to me, that's what makes it so powerful. So here's my definition. I think that civic innovation is the act of making a difference in communities, and it is done by really zeroing in on the real life issues and problems that communities face, and they work collaboratively with a very broad group of stakeholders to innovate solutions. So to me, it's the difference making that happens as a result of civic innovation. And so in my college, we put people at the heart of what we do. And I think people are at the heart of civic innovation. So, we've led, I think, in this area for quite some time. We want to improve people's lives. We want to enhance human potential. And civic innovation is really taking the creativity and the innovation of the university and working with people in communities where they've identified their issues and their problems, and collaboratively we come up with a solution. So that's my thought on civic innovation.
Thank you, Dean Jolly. Dean Robison, how does the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences define civic innovation?
All right, thank you so much. It's a great conversation. And of course, I agree with all my colleagues who have spoken already. It's going to get harder and harder to define this differently as we go through. I would say that between civic and social entrepreneurship and innovation, of course, there's a continuum of ideas and perspectives. I think it's about helping civil society advance, helping social society advance as well. And that's something that our College of Ag and Life Sciences has always been involved with from the beginning of this university and certainly off into the future. And it's broadly true among institutions like ours that are trying to make a positive difference in communities and across the landscape. There are lots of examples of this, of course, and they often blend between social, civic, and even business entrepreneurship and innovation. One of the things, of course, that we do is produce graduates, right? The value of a university is measured by the success of its alums. And we have graduates who go off into all these different fields. And in the past, and certainly today and in the future, we want them to contribute to civil society and to social society, as well as to whatever their unique career is. And oftentimes, the people who are successful in business are contributing greatly in terms of civic and social entrepreneurship and innovation, and vice versa. And there's lots of examples of this. There are things that we take for granted that at one point in time, just as Vice President Lawrence talked about, were innovations. 4-H was an innovation at the time. Conservation districts and drainage districts were innovations at the time. Organizations like the Grange or the Farm Bureau or the Iowa Corn Board, these were all innovations at the time, affecting groups of people, either communities or people in practice, as John had said. And so we know there'll be more of them, and there'll be new ones that seek out to support different kinds of populations and different kinds of communities. Organizations have risen up around immigrants, for example, around disadvantaged communities, very, very important areas of innovation and entrepreneurship, for example. We have a project here in the college on rural opioid use and how to prevent it, how to mitigate it, how to reduce opioids as an affliction in rural communities. That project itself is a form of civic innovation. And of course, the list goes on and on. So we're thrilled to be part of this. College designed to lead this conversation is entirely appropriate. As Luis often says, everything around us is design, either good, bad, or otherwise. And so if we can contribute to that in positive ways, that's what we're all about. So thank you.
Great. And last but not least, Dean Schmittmann, if you have anything to say about how civic innovation is defined within the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences.
Well, thank you, Aliana. And I think we're kind of, settling on a definition here. So my definition is that civic innovation is making the world a better place by working within and through your local community. And it is about creating opportunities for others. And it's often to make these opportunities more equitable and accessible to a wider group of individuals. Now, if you want to do that effectively, you have to start with knowledge. And you have to take knowledge and experiences and research and turn that into action in order to create change. So civic innovation for us begins with being able to see the world from multiple different perspectives. It's about exploring opportunities, challenges, commonalities, and differences of different individuals and different societies. And it also requires understanding our own beliefs and sometimes our own biases and to reflect on them. And this knowledge or this research can come from many of the programs in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, departments like economics, political science, or sociology, or philosophy and religious studies, or programs like our criminal justice program, our women's and gender studies program, or our US Latina Studies program, where students can really learn about these perspectives and broaden their horizon and their understanding of the issues faced by many different people in the world. But civic innovation can also come from our Department of Computer Science as they bring a much more diverse population into computing, or as they try to develop artificial intelligence codes that don't just reproduce racial or social inequities or biases. So it can come from the Department of Chemistry as they create more sustainable chemical compounds or processes. So I feel that our college, the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, has a very special responsibility here on campus. We see ourselves as a leader in providing courses that are at the very core of civic innovation, namely educating students and inspiring students of all majors in the complexity of diversity and cultures, both from next door and from across the globe. And really, civic innovation starts with that knowledge and that ability to see what needs to be changed.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, there's this overall goal that civic innovation can go beyond even Iowa State, that even these topics are discussed within the university. There's a big goal of creating leaders that will take on that role of civically innovating outside the school itself. So for Dean Jolly, Robison, and Dean Schmittmann, this next question is for all of you. Why is student engagement in civic innovation and social innovation so important, especially for college students?
Well, I went last, now I go first, okay? I'll just start out and then I'll kick it off to one of my two colleagues. So, I think the thing about college is, it gives students the opportunity to learn about everything, okay? And it's a place where you can work with scholars, with practitioners and experts in so many areas that you can learn from. And you have a little bit of open time, before, the mortgages and the kids and all of that goes in the way. You can discover allies, you can seek out peers who want to pursue similar paths, and you can learn from people with different and opposing ideas. And it's really, college is a great place to explore. It's a safe place to make mistakes and to hone your skills. And if you do that here in a relatively safe setting, you're going to be so much more effective in your career and in your civic engagement later on, because you already practiced, you already got some experiences, you already worked on some projects, you know what a stakeholder is, you know how to build alliances, and you've also learned the patience that sometimes comes with affecting change.
Yeah, I agree with Beate. The experience students have here is preparing them for their future career, their life, and in their communities all over the world, because we know our students are in Iowa, they're in every state, and they're all over the world. And so I think that piggybacking a little bit, that opportunity to explore, and I think several talked about, or we all shared the notion that problems are multifaceted and people are multifaceted. And how do we help our students engage in problems in communities and really have that ability to step back, take stock, and think about the broader context? And that might be here in Iowa, it might be across the globe. One of the things that we've so valued with our students in the School of Ed is that many of them will have an opportunity to do a student teaching assignment somewhere else in the world. And so they're becoming global citizens by learning about, but contributing to the educational system in other countries. But they have at Iowa State just this grand opportunity to give it a try, to go out there, to be difference makers, to use their knowledge and have support to apply it and to make a difference wherever they are. So it's exciting. I think it's part of our strategic plan. It's probably in every single strategic plan all across the university, is this notion of engagement and practice and really being innovative in finding solutions.
All right, there must be something left for me to add. I think, we want our students to be lifelong learners, our graduates. We want them to think in diverse and integrated kinds of ways. And of course, here at an institution like Iowa State, most everybody chooses a particular discipline or set of disciplines to become well skilled in, whether it's agronomy or family studies or chemistry, whatever it may be. And yet when they go out and take up their place in a community or in a business or in an organization of some kind, they're going to need to work with and help people from all kinds of disciplines and backgrounds, and to be social and civic entrepreneurs and innovators in the places they go and live and work and so on. And so it's the task of the university to give our students exposure to all those topics. That's why we have general education. That's why we have majors as well as minors and certificates and all kinds of other ways that students can expand their learning. That's why we try across disciplines to find ways to weave opportunities together. Just recently, Dean Rico Gutierrez and I and our colleagues were talking about joint projects on our satellite campus in the Virgin Islands, where students from the College of Design and students from the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences might work together on sustainable development kinds of questions. They won't all go and eventually live and work on the Virgin Islands, but they will learn new things there that they'll apply in other parts of the world and other parts of the country. And so it is, as my colleagues have said, an opportunity here on a campus like ours to give students broad exposure to the complexity of problems and how to work together with each other to solve them on whatever community they land in, whatever organization they work in. So that's why it's important to us, because we're devoted to making this world a better place, and you can only do that with each other.
Liana, could I emphasize just one thing that Dan just said?
Yeah.
I think there's something to say about complexity. You know, the reality is that there are no simple problems, and civic innovators often deal with some of the more complex problems in society. And I just think that students' exposure to complexity is a necessary experience. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is that process-wise, civic innovation, because of that complexity, highlights the importance of bringing together multiple disciplinary backgrounds and points of view to address the problem that we're talking about. More importantly, I think it exposes students to problems often overlooked, problems with no clear ownership, no clear person or organization responsible for providing solutions, and demonstrate how our students can make a difference, for themselves, for their friends, and really for all members of society, as it's been said before.
Thank you. So the last question, this is for everyone. What projects feature civic innovation within your college, and what is the impact of student engagement within our communities? Dean Seo, if you want to start that off, or Vice President Lawrence, you have any thoughts on that?
I'll go ahead and start. An example that I can think of that involves our students is a program we call Rising Stars Interns. And it's a partnership with the colleges represented here on the screen as well, where we will take a cohort of students, usually 3, for the summer to work with a community around a particular challenge that's been identified. Maybe it's around increasing access to healthy foods or locally produced foods. To have a business aspect to it as well as a nutrition aspect. One of the teams took on childcare for a local community of finding a sustainable solution to a childcare shortage. But it embedded the students in the community. They lived in the community through the summer. They met with local leaders, local people to fully understand the problem, but then to work on a solution. And gave them an opportunity to see that through to fruition, whether that is starting a local farmers market, whether that was delivering a report to business leaders and civic leaders around a community childcare center in which the community picked up and implemented after the students left. So it was a great learning opportunity to be in a problem setting or problem solving situation away from maybe the safety of campus, but still with a cohort of students so they could bounce ideas off of each other. And oftentimes those students are from different colleges. So the design students working with the College of Ag and Life Science students and the nutrition people from human sciences to really bring a multifaceted solution back to that community.
So one thing that the University Library does within our special collections and university archives is that we collect and document the history of this campus. And I mentioned the Tracing Race project, that there's activities that go on, that constantly go on. And we recognize that as we try to collect the records of campus, we only get official records a lot of times. And a lot of the voices of our students of color and other marginalized groups don't appear in the records at all because they don't have a formal connection with the university library, or there may be some distrust of the institution and not wanting to give that information up. So one thing that our university archives does is they actually do oral histories, but they also try to teach our students how to do oral histories. And I'll take this a step further, and we did this a little bit with some of the 4-H students. It was part of the Ujima and Maize programs. And our intent was giving these young people agency and voice, and elevating the stories of either their own stories or the stories of their community and their families, the things that aren't documented traditionally, and making sure that we do capture them to in some ways balance out our collections. But this has been a way for us to emphasize with the students that what they're experiencing and what they've learned from their parents and their grandparents and their elders, their community, is worth documenting. And it can be their opportunity to do this with us. And we also recognize that we're changing the way we do things. We don't need to own everything anymore. This is our what we call a post-custodial process. We want our students of color and these 4-H and these younger kids to keep their culture within their community. And we're here to provide, to be consultants, but we are not here to tell them how to do the work, how to interpret their own culture. This is our way of making sure that other communities can participate in this archives process.
Great, thank you. Any of the college deans, if you have any comments about exciting projects that are happening within your college that feature civic innovation?
So I could highlight a couple very quickly. First of all, we have something we call the Be Innovation Symposium, and usually it's a great outlet to showcase not only what others are doing in their communities, but also the work of our students. This is something that we've created through our interdisciplinary design undergraduate program. And many times we see a lot of the work of what we call option studios represented there. So our option studios are, for me, a really exciting example. In a nutshell, most of our junior studios, third year for the 4-year programs, or the fourth year studios for the 5-year programs, focus on complex problems that require the experience of more than one discipline, or more than one background or point of view to produce meaningful contributions. This year, we set the goals successfully to address all 17 United Nations sustainability goals for the next century, things like poverty, hunger, eliminating inequities, clean water, clean energy, sustainable cities, etc. And we just have around, we're just shy of 240 students in 12 option studios working on this. And as I said, across all those 12 studios, we think that we're going to be able to make meaningful contributions to the 17 goals.
Elena, one that I would, or a couple that I would highlight in the College of Human Sciences. One is the what's called UTurn, and that stands for the University Translational Research Network, and it's an interdisciplinary system, I think is what I would call it now, where researchers across the university are looking, focusing on how they translate their research to practice, and that practice setting is often the community. So as Dr. Lawrence was talking about, the getting on the train and going out into Iowa to deliver knowledge years ago when the land grant system was started. Well, we're still about that. So we discover all sorts of things in laboratories and research settings all over campus, and we've got to So we need to identify ways that research is then adopted out in the communities. And, much of the work in our college, I think, as I mentioned, is coming from a community-based place where problems start there and we then have solutions, but then there's still the adoption of the solutions and how do you create the program so that citizens will change habits, behaviors, et cetera. So I think that this translational research network is all about that. And one of the things that they've done to connect students to those opportunities is they have what's called the Community Engagement Collective. And so there are student clubs and organizations all over the universities that are connected to that. They can log into online portal and identify opportunities all across the state where they can be a part of finding solutions or helping to translate this research in communities. So that's been a big initiative for us, and we're continuing to think about how do we deliver and how do we get more students out in communities helping translate the research of the university.
So I'll also highlight a couple of projects, and then Dean Robison can give it the final flourish from the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. But I'll just highlight a couple of projects. One of them is, the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences is home to the Kerry Chapman Cat Center for Women in Politics. And that center is all about civic engagement. So it's home to a range of programs which are centered on understanding and increasing the participation of a wide range of people, and in particular women, in the political process. Every year, the center runs a program, it's called Ready to Run Iowa, and it brings in people from all across the political spectrum and provides guidance and training in how to run for elected office. And that can range from school board to state senate or, whatever it is. And students are very much engaged in planning these efforts and participating. And also recently, the center rolled out a project, which is part of our Student Innovation Center activities. And that's a project designed to engage all ISU students in an opportunity for civic engagement in our fundamental source of civic change, namely voting. So the project is called Go Vote. It was officially launched 2 weeks ago, and it challenges ISU students to create a strategy to motivate other students on campus to vote. So the program offered workshops on how to design, create, test, and apply ideas for a strategy. And it also offers up $3,000 in prizes for participants. And we expect to announce the winners on April 16th. And a very different project is actually course-based. Megan Myers, who is an associate professor of Spanish, teaches a course on Iowa Latino families and the immigration experience. And a year ago, before the pandemic shut everything down, she and her students traveled to Perry High School in Perry, Iowa every other week. And there they met with high school students whose second language is English. So they come from Latino families, and they worked with these students to help the students and their families understand the importance of the US Census. These families, if you come from outside the US, you may not know much about it. You may even fear negative consequences. But being included in the census obviously is very important for their community's access to resources. So it was a great learning experience for our students and the Perry High School students. Our students created games. They created examples of how the census impact local economies, created games that the Perry students could play with their parents, et cetera. So it was a way of helping this community, appreciate the importance of the US Census, and it just involved just regular Iowa State students. And they learned a lot of Spanish in the process too, so that was great.
So I would add that we are all so proud of the things our students do, and that our students come to us with ideas and new organizations and new initiatives they want to launch. And we've got great faculty that are doing the same all the time. And there are just so many projects. Some are new, some are long-lived. Out of this college, Ag and Life Sciences, there's any number of them that I could highlight. I'll start by saying that in our Department of Sociology, which this college shares with the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, There's all kinds of people who do really important outreach and research in the realm of social and civic entrepreneurship and innovation. There's a project called Data Science for the Public Good, which finds ways to use data to inform changes and needs that happen in rural communities. Back to a comment that was made earlier about doing this with good data, using scientific basis for informing policy. It's really important. Another project called Eat Great Des Moines, which is about providing access to food and nutrition in the greater Des Moines area. Within sociology department, there's a major called Ag and Society, which is all about helping our undergraduate students, in this case, learn to understand the relationships between agriculture and natural resources and how social systems develop and evolve and how communities either prosper or don't, and ways to encourage them to prosper. We have a wonderful program in Uganda in Central East Africa, and the program is called the Center for Sustainable Rural Livelihoods. And it's all about finding ways to infuse and add value to local communities there in sustainable ways with appropriate technologies and in culturally appropriate ways that those communities can grow and prosper and thrive as well through business applications, through social and civic kinds of applications. And the list goes on. And we could all spend a lot of time talking about these sorts of great programs we have, and we are open to more all the time because there will be new needs and new ways to look at the world that we have not yet thought of. So very excited to talk about them.
Yeah, great. I think hearing about all these different programs that are happening makes me want to go back to Iowa State and go back to school. So the last question for students like or past students like myself who are interested in wanting to get involved, where should students go to get more information? You know, if they want to take on these leadership roles or are really interested in digging into the complexities of what it means to really be civic minded within Iowa State, but also after they graduate.
I can kick that one off. Across the state of Iowa, each county has 9 elected council members that have a fiduciary responsibility, but also a leadership responsibility within their extension, within their county. So running for office to become a council member in the community they live in, it's a direct connection back to Iowa State, but more importantly, it's to their community.
Send me an email. We're hungry to hear more initiatives. Me or anybody in the College of Design, we want to, be able to allow our students to collaborate with anybody that has a great idea, to improve living conditions in any community in the state of Iowa. And that applies not only to any student, but if this is seen by members of communities around the state, we're open, to your suggestions, and we'll be happy to help.
So I'll add that perhaps several contacts in this college, and I think we would all refer students to other colleges as need be. One is Professor of Rural Sociology, Dave Peters, has lots of experience and information to share. That's at dpeters@iastate.edu. Another would be Professor of Economics, Kevin Kimley, who runs the Agricultural Entrepreneurship Initiative, which is often focused on business activities, but still a great resource to redirect students to their interests in social and civic entrepreneurship. And that's kimley@iastate.edu. And of course, they can email me and we'll get them to the right people.
Yeah, I think, going to the website, fill in the contact page, say, this is what I want to do. And I think it would come to us, and I'm guessing others have that, but an email is great. And I would say the two key leaders of the U-Turn project, one is Dr. Greg Welk, who's a professor in kinesiology, and Dr. Carl Weems, who is professor and department chair in human development and family studies. And I also think that our student services office is a great landing spot as well, because they're working to connect students with opportunities.
So I'll also provide 2 contacts. Okay, so first of all, send me an email and I'll make sure it gets to the right place. That's always the easiest way. But, a very good contact in the college is our recently hired Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, Rebecca Runyon. And that's RUNYON. And it's runyon@iastate.edu. And if you're specifically interested in the CAT Center efforts, the director is Karen Kedrowski, and she's very easy to find on the LAS directory. So either an email to me or to runyon@iastate.edu. Thanks.
Dean Seo, any contacts or how to get involved with the library, more about civic innovation?
They certainly can email me. At some point, we are hoping to start our student experience group, but that would be for current students. And it's not just about advising us and telling us what to do, but it's trying to figure out what our students need and the best ways to meet them.
Great, thank you. I think that wraps up all of the questions we have. Thank you everyone for attending this. It's been really great for me personally to understand what civic innovation really means for Iowa State and the different efforts that are happening. Again, it makes me miss Iowa State a lot and makes me want to go back. So that's really exciting. Dean Luis, if you have any last minute words to wrap up, I know the Dean Charette is coming up. If you wanted to say anything about that.
Well, two things. First, you're always welcome, Aliana, so you can come anytime you want. And then to talk about the Dean Charette, also go back to you. You're a pioneer. You actually were part of the first time, we actually had the Dean Charette in the College of Design. And, for people that do not know what a charrette is, I just will say that in the history of design education, there is this almost mythical event called the charrette. And the name comes from the small carts, a little bit like the cart that we use in supermarkets. And that's charrette, literally, that's what it means in French. The faculty members will use to collect the work at the end of a very short, but very intense and very productive design exercise. And students usually end up very tired, but very happy about their participation in the event. And as part of this Ignite Innovation celebration, we'll host what is called the Design Dean Charette. And no, the Dean Charette is not about me strolling around buildings in the university with a shopping cart collecting assignments. No, it is about the very intense, very productive, and very rewarding, I'm sure, exercise where in a period of 1 week, and with the support of faculty, staff, and peers, students from all programs in the university can demonstrate how working together we become more than the sum of the parts and can exert what I will call disproportionate impact on the quest to transform the present into a much better future for everyone. This year, the theme will be around education. It will begin shortly after this conversation is presented, and I can't wait to see the amazing work of our students. The event will start with a keynote by Ana Pinto, one of the most engaging and creative industrial designers in the world today. When I met Ana, she was the principal user experience design lead for Amazon's Grand Challenges team, but it seems that those challenges were not grand enough for her. Now she's determined to provide innovative housing solutions for populations with special needs because of age or physical challenges, but who will not sacrifice their independence to live the future in their own terms. And I'm not going to say more, so please come watch the keynote because it's going to be really amazing. And with her message as inspiration, we will start working on the future of education, particularly the future of learning places and learning practices, driven by a deceptively simple set of questions. How might we reframe learning spaces, places, and practices in all our college communities and the post-pandemic era? How might we investigate, co-create, and locate places that can reconnect people and enhance collective well-being, teaching, and learning? The College of Design's Dean Charette is a participation call and an action call for all students around campus interested in questioning, investigating, and creating new hybrid places of learning for higher education. So, what will happen is after the keynote on Friday, we'll have a structured set of activities on Saturday that will set the stage for student teams to continue their work on their own until Thursday, when the metaphorical charrette, this little cart, will come in the afternoon to collect the treasure embedded in our students' ideas. And I just want to say, I hope to see you all there. I think all there is going to be really exciting. and I can wait.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that wraps up the end of this conversation. Again, thank you everyone for coming. This was a really great conversation to be a part of. Thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Aliana, thank you so much for being a great ambassador to the college.
Happy to do it.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye now.